The story of Ronan, a journey beyond fear. In the small town of Everbrook, where people lived quiet, predictable lives, there was a young man named Ronan Vale. From the outside, he seemed like any other 24-year-old, working a stable job, spending weekends with friends, and following the path society had set for him. But deep inside, Ronan carried a secret, a fear so strong that it controlled his every decision. He was afraid of failure. Ever since childhood, Ronan had been haunted by the idea of disappointing others. He avoided risks, never spoke up in meetings, and always took the safest route, even if it made him unhappy. He was stuck, not because he lacked talent, but because he lacked the courage to step beyond his comfort zone. One day, an opportunity arose. His company was looking for someone to lead a major project. It was a chance for Ronan to prove himself, to finally break free from the shadows. But instead of excitement, fear paralyzed him. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough? His mind filled with doubts, and as expected, he let the opportunity pass. That night, as he lay in bed, he felt an overwhelming sense of regret. Was he going to live his whole life running from fear? The turning point. The next morning, as Ronan walked through town, he saw an old man sitting by the river, sketching a beautiful landscape. Curious, he approached him. The man, Mr. Alden, was a retired painter who had traveled the world. Ronan noticed that despite his talent, some of his paintings had mistakes, smudges, uneven lines, and colors that bled into one another. Ronan hesitated but finally asked, "Aren't you afraid of making mistakes?" Mr. Alden chuckled. "Of course not. Mistakes are just proof that I tried. The real failure is never picking up the brush at all." Ronan stared at the unfinished painting, realizing something profound. Fear had been holding him back from even trying. Mr. Alden continued, "Fear will always be there, Ronan. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite it. Facing fear head-on." That night, Ronan wrote in his journal, "Fear is only powerful if I let it control me. If I fail, I learn. If I never try, I lose." Determined to change, he set a small challenge for himself, to speak up in his next team meeting. His hand shook, his heart pounded, but he did it. And to his surprise, nothing bad happened. The more he pushed himself, the stronger he became. He volunteered for projects. He joined a public speaking class. He started saying yes to opportunities instead of running from them. Each step was terrifying, but each step made fear a little weaker and his confidence a little stronger. Learning that failure is a teacher. One day, Ronan finally built the courage to lead a major project at work. He worked hard, poured his heart into it, but he made mistakes. At first, he panicked. He expected judgment, disappointment. But instead, his manager smiled and said, "Now you know what doesn't work. Fix it and try again." For the first time, Ronan saw failure for what it truly was, not a dead end, but a lesson. Fear of failure had been worse than failure itself. The moment of transformation. Months passed, and Ronan was no longer the same man. He wasn't fearless, but he no longer let fear control him. He applied for his dream job, a leadership position in a top company. The old Ronan would have hesitated, but this time, he stepped forward with confidence. During the interview, he was asked, "What is the biggest challenge you've overcome?" He smiled and replied, "Learning that fear is just an obstacle, not a wall." Ronan got the job. But more importantly, he got his life back.
Moral of the story: fear will always exist. It's part of being human. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simply successful ones take action despite fear. If you ever feel afraid, remember fear is just a feeling. It doesn't define you. Every failure is a lesson, not the end. Courage isn't about having no fear, it's about moving forward despite it.